Please marry my mummy. The doors of the Grand Magnus Hotel parted like a silent invitation into another world. The golden lobby shimmered under a dome of crystal chandeliers. Businessmen in tailored suits whispered into Bluetooth earpieces, and socialites clicked across the marble floor in heels. Worth a small fortune. No one noticed the little girl standing at the edge of the revolving door. Not at first. She looked lost. 7 years old, in a faded pink dress 2 sizes too big, her shoes soaked from the rain. She clutched a small stuffed bunny, with one ear missing, and stared at the crowd like she was searching for someone. And then she ran straight across the lobby, straight toward a man in a dark tailored suit, surrounded by assistants and bodyguards. Sir, please marry my mummy, please. The crowd froze. Phones lowered. Laughter stopped. All eyes turned to the girl. She grabbed the man's coat and looked up with big brown eyes full of tears. She's really sick. Please, you're rich. You can help her. She's all I've got left. The man looked down slowly. Damon Wolfe, billionaire, ruthless, unshakable. He was the kind of man reporters described as ice in a 3-piece suit. Youngest CEO in his company's history. Raised in cold, brutal silence, his eyes didn't flinch for business rivals, lawsuits, or threats. But right now, something flickered in his gaze. His voice was low. What did you say? Please, the girl whispered. You're the only person she ever smiled about. Who's your mother? The girl turned and pointed at the glass doors. Outside, in the rain, stood a woman with no umbrella, hugging herself against the cold, soaking wet, pale, barefoot. She didn't seem to notice the people staring. She only looked at the girl, and then at Damon, and Damon stared back like he'd seen a ghost. For a moment, everything stopped. His surroundings vanished. His assistant's voice blurred out. Ivy, he breathed. No, it can't be. The woman looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Her long dark hair clung to her face. She swayed slightly, then took one step and collapsed. Mummy! The girl screamed. Damon shoved aside the nearest person and rushed. Outside, he caught the woman just before her head hit the pavement. Her eyes rolled back. Her lips moved, too softly to hear. Get the car, Damon barked. Now. 20 minutes later, Damon's penthouse suite had transformed into an emergency room. A private doctor checked the woman on the bed while Damon stood still, watching like a statue carved from anger and confusion. She's exhausted, weak, probably. Hasn't eaten properly in days, the doctor said. She needs food, water, and rest. The little girl sat in silence on the edge of a leather couch, her bunny in her lap. Damon finally turned. What's your name? Aubrey. He knelt beside her. And your mother? Her voice wavered. Ivy. Her name's Ivy. Damon stood. His hands shook. He walked to the window, breathing hard, gripping the curtain so tightly it could have torn. That name cut through years like a knife. 10 years ago, he had been in love, desperately, stupidly in love with a girl named Ivy. She had brought light into his bitter life, and then she vanished. No goodbye, no note, no explanation. He'd searched for months. Nothing. It was like she had died, and now she was back, collapsed, broken with a child. He looked again at Aubrey. Same brown eyes, same quiet strength, same stubborn jaw. He didn't need a DNA test to see the resemblance. Where's your father? He asked. He died, she whispered. He was mean to Mummy. Damon froze. Did he hurt her? Aubrey looked down and nodded slowly. Damon turned away. He dialed a number on his phone. Find out everything on Ivy, he said, voice sharp. Where she's been. What happened. I want answers. Now. Ivy stirred. Her eyes blinked open. The soft ceiling lights above her made her squint, and then she saw him. Her body stiffened like a wire pulled too tight. Damon, he didn't speak. I didn't want you to see me like this, she whispered. His voice was low. I didn't want to see you at all. She closed her eyes. Why didn't you tell me you had a daughter? He demanded. She's not yours. He stepped forward. She looks exactly like me. She's not. You disappeared 10 years ago. You think I won't question everything now? Tears welled up in her eyes. Please, Damon, I don't have the strength for this. He stared at her with fire in his chest. You took away my chance to be part of her life. I saved you from my past. What past? Ivy sat up slowly, trembling. Her voice dropped into something hollow. You don't want to know. Try me. I went to prison. Damon. The words hung in the air like poison. He stepped back. What? For 2 years. What for? Attempted murder, she whispered. He stared at her like she'd grown a second face. I didn't do it, she said quickly. But the courts didn't care. I took the blame for someone else, my husband. Damon's eyes narrowed. The man who died, she nodded. I had no choice. If I didn't protect him, they would have taken Aubrey. I didn't have money, no lawyer, no help. You had me. You were already turning into someone the world feared. I didn't want to be your weakness, so you let me believe you were dead. I was dead, she whispered. On the inside, a tense silence stretched out. Aubrey peeked into the room. Mummy. Ivy's expression softened instantly. Come here, baby. The little girl ran into her arms. Ivy winced, but hugged her tight. Damon looked at them both. His jaw clenched, his fists curled. He hated how vulnerable Ivy looked. He hated how much he still cared. But most of all, he hated that he had no idea what the truth really was. His phone buzzed. He picked it up. A message from his assistant. Report received. Ivy Monroe, released from State Correctional Facility 3 years ago. Record sealed. No recent address. No employment. Moved frequently. Shelter confirmed at St. Margaret's for women and children. Domestic abuse. History confirmed. Husband deceased. Cause, suspicious house fire. Damon stared at the screen. His heart pounded. He looked up. Ivy. She looked at him cautiously. That fire, the one that killed your husband, did you start it? No, she said firmly. But someone thinks you did. I was asleep with Aubrey. The fire started in the kitchen, but by the time help came, he was gone. No proof, no evidence, just assumptions. And the courts believed you were capable of killing him. She looked away. He hurt us both. Damon, I think some part of me stopped trying to fight back after a while. He rubbed his face with one hand. Everything he believed was unraveling. That night, Damon stood alone in his study, looking out. Over the city skyline, he barely noticed the rain against the glass. His mind was on Ivy, on Aubrey, on the broken pieces of a woman he had once planned to marry. Could he trust her? Was she still hiding something? And why, even after everything, did his heart still ache for her? A soft knock. He turned. Aubrey stood in the doorway in one of the hotels. Oversized t-shirts. Can I sleep in here? He blinked. What? I can't sleep alone. I get scared. He didn't know how to respond. She walked up to him, barefoot, hugging her bunny. You were nice today. Mummy said no one's been nice in a long time. He knelt slowly. You're a strong girl, he said. Your mum must be proud. She cries at night when she thinks I'm asleep. He felt a crack somewhere deep in his chest. Can you please marry her? She whispered again, so she won't cry anymore. He stared into her eyes. Something inside him shifted. He didn't have an answer. Not yet. But one thing was certain. He couldn't walk away. Not this time. Secrets in the shadows. Damon Wolfe had stood in war rooms with generals, out-negotiated billionaires, and stared down hostile takeovers without blinking. But tonight, standing in his own penthouse while a little girl slept on the couch and her broken mother lay in his guest room, he felt unsteady for the first time in years. He watched the soft rise and fall of Aubrey's chest as she slept, still clutching her worn bunny. Her lips moved slightly, mumbling through a dream. Probably nightmares. God only knew what she'd seen. He should have called social services. That's what any CEO with half a brain would do. Get the kid into safety. Keep the scandal out of the media. But he didn't. Instead, he sat across from her and kept watch, like some part of him had decided, without permission, that this girl was his responsibility, and maybe more than that, his blood. He still hadn't asked Ivy for a DNA test, not because he didn't want to know, but because part of him already knew. The next morning, Ivy woke to the scent of eggs and toast. She opened her eyes slowly, confused. She was warm, dry, clean. Someone had dressed her in a soft cotton robe and left clothes folded neatly by the bed. She barely remembered last night after collapsing in the rain. She stepped out into the sunlit kitchen. Aubrey sat at the marble counter eating pancakes, her legs swinging freely from the stool. Damon stood behind the stove, flipping something in a pan like a man who didn't belong in a kitchen. Ivy froze. He looked over his shoulder. You're awake? Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to sit. Eat. You look like you haven't had a proper meal in weeks. I haven't, she admitted softly, stepping forward. Aubrey beamed. Mummy, Mr. Damon made pancakes and coffee, and he said we can stay till you feel better. Ivy looked at Damon with surprise. You said that? I did. he said coolly. I don't like unfinished business. Is that what we are now? She asked, voice low. Business. He didn't answer, but his eyes lingered too long. After breakfast, Ivy sat quietly on the balcony while Aubrey napped in the guest room. Damon stepped outside, coffee in hand. The sky was overcast, but the city stretched far beneath them like a restless machine. You said you didn't want to be found, he said without preamble. Why? Ivy looked down at her hands. Because I wasn't the same person anymore. The woman you loved. She died the night I went to prison. He didn't interrupt. She continued. Back then, I was naive. I thought love could fix things. But after I left you, I met Owen. He seemed kind at first. Then he changed. You married him. Not by choice, she said bitterly. I was pregnant. I was scared. He isolated me from everyone, took my phone, watched my every move. Damon clenched his jaw. One night, she whispered, he got drunk. He hurt me. Aubrey saw it. I tried to leave, but he caught us. I took the blame for something I didn't do, because I knew if I didn't, he'd take her from me. And I couldn't let that happen. Damon's voice was hoarse. And the fire, I don't know how it started, but it ended him. I lost everything that night. My freedom, my name, my chance at a normal life. You should have told me. I thought you'd hate me. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he asked, is she mine? Ivy's breath hitched. No, she said, but her voice cracked. Damon stared at her. Don't lie to me, Ivy. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She is, she whispered, but I was scared you'd take her from me. I didn't want her raised in boardrooms and bodyguards. She deserves to know who she is, he said coldly. She deserves to be safe. A sharp silence fell between them, and then his assistant burst through the door. Double quotes, sir, you need to see this. Damon took the tablet she handed him. His eyes narrowed as he read. A news article, ex-prisoner spotted with billionaire CEO, sources say Ivy Monroe, former convict linked to arson death of abusive husband, is now residing with Damon Wolfe. The photos were grainy, but real. Ivy collapsed in his arms. Aubrey crying in the lobby. Ivy's face drained of color. They found us. Damon looked at her. How? Who leaked this? His assistant answered, someone from the hotel. It's gone viral. Ivy sat down, trembling. They'll come. They'll try to take Aubrey. I've been through this before. Damon stepped forward. No one's taking her. You can't protect us from the courts, Damon. Not if they think I'm unstable. He pulled out his phone. Watch me. That evening, Damon made calls. Private investigators, legal contacts, crisis PR teams. One by one, he lined up every resource he had. But Ivy, she felt the walls closing in again, just like they did before. She stood by the window in Damon's bedroom, watching the city blink beneath her. A voice broke her thoughts. You okay? She turned. Aubrey stood behind her in pajamas. Come here, Ivy whispered, lifting her daughter onto the seat beside her. Aubrey snuggled against her shoulder. Why are people taking our pictures again? The girl asked. Because some people don't know when to mind their own business, Ivy said softly. Are we in trouble? Ivy didn't answer. Aubrey whispered. Mr. Damon said we're family now. Ivy's eyes filled with tears. I don't want you to grow up hiding like I did, she whispered. Even if it means I lose you, you deserve light. Aubrey's small hand found hers. Then you be in the light too, Mummy. The next morning, Damon called an emergency meeting with Ivy and a lawyer in his penthouse. The tabloids are going to spin this story no matter what, he said. We can let them write you off as a broken ex-con, or we give them something they can't twist. Like what? Ivy asked. A marriage, he said simply. To me, her mouth fell open. You can't be serious. I am. If you're my wife, everything changes. Public sympathy, legal protection, media spin. You think this is a game? No, he said. I think it's a strategy, and it protects Aubrey. Ivy stood, pacing. You're asking me to fake a marriage in front of the whole world, after everything. Damon looked at her calmly. Would you rather lose her? She froze. No court will believe you're stable while you're unemployed, living in a penthouse with your child and your former lover. But as my wife, they'll think twice before coming after you. What's in it for you? I get to keep the media out of my company's throat. And maybe, he hesitated, maybe I get a second chance. Ivy stared at him, eyes wide. Her heart thundered. And then Aubrey walked in, rubbing her eyes. What's going on? Damon stood and walked to her, kneeling down. He took her small hands. "Aubrey," he said gently, "would it be okay if I asked your mum to marry me?" Aubrey blinked, stunned. Then she smiled so wide it lit the room. "Yes," she squealed. "Please do it." Ivy looked away, torn. But when she looked back, both Damon and Aubrey were watching her, not with pressure, but with hope. Her voice cracked. "Okay. Double quotes." Damon stood. "We'll marry tomorrow. Quiet. Private. Just us." That night, Ivy stood, alone in the guest room, staring at a simple white dress Damon's assistant had delivered. Nothing extravagant, but elegant, clean. She touched the fabric like it might vanish. Was she really going to do this? Marry a man she had once loved, still loved, but had lied to? Could she ever make things right? A knock on the door. She turned. Damon stood there. He didn't enter. He just said, "You're not alone anymore. I don't care about the past, only what we do now." And then he left. Ivy sat on the bed. She didn't sleep, but for the first time in years, she didn't cry either. The wedding and the whispered threat. The sun hadn't even risen when the penthouse began to buzz with quiet preparations. There were no grand decorations, no floral arches or velvet runners. No paparazzi were tipped off. Just a quiet morning haze, soft classical music, and two people trying to bury 10 years of hurt in a single promise. Ivy stood before a mirror in a simple ivory dress. It fit her like it was made for her, graceful, modest, and strong. Her fingers trembled as she pinned back her hair. Behind her, Aubrey bounced on her toes in a pale blue dress. "You look like a princess, Mummy." Ivy gave a soft smile. "I don't feel like one." "Well, Mr. Damon looks like a prince." Ivy turned. "He does." Aubrey nodded, serious. "And he's not cold anymore. I think you melted him." Ivy gave a light laugh, but her heart twisted. She wasn't sure what today meant. Was it a second chance, or just another temporary shelter before the next storm? In the sunlit rooftop garden, Damon stood in a fitted grey suit. For once, there was no boardroom tension in his shoulders, just quiet resolve. The officiant, a trusted family friend, smiled softly at the small gathering. Only Damon's assistant, the housekeeper, and a bodyguard stood as witnesses. And then Ivy appeared. Every head turned. Damon's breath caught. She walked slowly, holding Aubrey's hand. There was no music, no aisle, just the sound of the city far below, and the rustle of her dress in the wind. There, eyes locked. 10 years collapsed in that look. He took her hand. Hers was trembling. "Ready?" he asked quietly. "No," she whispered, "but I'm here." They stood face to face. The vows were short, simple. Damon repeated his without hesitation. Ivy's voice cracked halfway through hers, but she finished. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, Aubrey clapped like it was the happiest ending she'd ever seen. Damon didn't kiss Ivy. He didn't have to. The look in his eyes said more than touch ever could. Later that evening, the three of them had dinner alone in the penthouse dining room. It wasn't fancy, just roast chicken, soft bread, and a quiet air of something that felt almost like family. Aubrey chatted about a cartoon she loved. Ivy watched Damon pour her a glass of water, like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. But to her, it wasn't. Everything felt fragile, like if she breathed too hard, it would all disappear. She finally asked, "Do you think this will work?" He paused. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'm not letting you disappear again." She swallowed. "And what if I'm still broken?" "Then we build from the pieces." Her eyes glistened. He leaned in. "Tell me everything you've been afraid to say." "I can't. Not here." He raised an eyebrow. "Why?" And then Ivy said something she hadn't said in years. "Because I think someone's watching us." That night, Ivy sat on the bed, gripping a photo that had been slipped under her door hours earlier. A photo no one could have taken recently. Aubrey playing outside. A shelter. Ivy standing behind her, exhausted and thin. There was no name, number, message, just the image. She had told no one about that day. Not even Damon, which meant someone had followed them. She walked into Damon's study, clutching the photo. He was on the phone. But the moment he saw her face, he ended the call mid-sentence. She held out the photo. He took one look and stiffened. "Where did this come from?" "It was under our door." He studied it, eyes narrowing. "This wasn't taken by the press. This was personal." "I told you," she whispered. "Someone's been watching." His voice was steel. "I'll find out who." 2 days later, the PR spin began. Magazines ran softened versions of Ivy's past. Articles hinted at redemption, focused on her new role as Damon's wife and devoted mother. Some headlines called it the cold CEO's unexpected love story. Others sneered, convict to Cinderella. But what mattered was the legal progress. Damon's lawyers presented a compelling case for Ivy's emotional stability, the legitimacy of the marriage, and their intention to formally adopt Aubrey under his name. They were winning, until Ivy got a message that changed everything. She was in the kitchen when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. "You think money makes you untouchable. I remember the fire, and I know the truth. You want peace, you'll pay for it." Her knees buckled. She called Damon immediately. He traced the number, but it was from a burner phone, untraceable. Ivy's voice shook. "He had a brother, Owen, my ex. His older brother, Travis. He was worse than Owen, meaner, smarter. He always said if Owen died, I'd be next." Damon's eyes turned cold. "Why didn't you tell me this earlier? I didn't think he'd find me." "You married me to protect yourself, but you're still hiding." "I'm not trying to lie. You're trying to survive," he muttered. Then, quieter, "I get it now." That night, Damon took extra security precautions. 2 guards posted at the entrance, surveillance cameras checked, staff rotated, but something still felt off. Like danger wasn't outside the building but already inside it. And then Aubrey screamed. They ran to the bedroom. She was crying, pointing at the window. "I saw a man. He was looking right at me." Damon ran to the window. Nothing but darkness, but the latch was loose. "From the next building, maybe," he whispered. He picked Aubrey up, her small body shaking. Ivy looked like she'd collapse. "We're leaving," Damon said. Now, he took them to his estate outside the city, a massive property, gated and private. No media, no intruders, armed guards patrolling. "This place is a fortress," he said. "You're safe here." But Ivy didn't feel safe. She felt watched, haunted. That night, while Damon was in his study, Ivy crept into the library. She pulled out a dusty wooden box from her backpacks, something she hadn't opened in years. Inside were old letters, from Owen, from Travis, threats, obsessions, promises of revenge. She hadn't told the police about them before. She had been too afraid. Now, she handed the whole box to Damon. "I don't want to keep secrets anymore," she said, "even if it ruins me." He stared at her, then gently pulled her into his arms. "It won't ruin you," he whispered. "It just saved you." The next morning, they woke to a shocking headline. Wolf CEO's wife, targeted by unpublished court records reveal missing witness in Ivy Monroe's past. Damon slammed the paper down. "This is deliberate. Someone leaked your sealed file." Ivy's hands shook. "They're trying to destroy the image you built." "No," he said. "They're trying to destroy you." Damon's investigator finally returned that afternoon. Travis Owen, last known location, outside the country. No job, no fixed address, but recent cash movements from a private account traced back to someone inside Damon's own company. A betrayal from within. "He had someone on the inside," Damon muttered. "He's being fed information." Ivy's face went pale. "Then nowhere is safe." But Damon looked at her firmly. "Wrong. We make it safe." And then he turned to the investigator. "Find him. I don't care what it costs." The investigator nodded. Damon looked back at Ivy and Aubrey, his family now, and he would protect them with everything he had, even if it meant breaking all his own rules. Truth, justice, and the final choice. The storm rolled in like a warning. Clouds darkened the sky above Damon Wolf's countryside estate as the wind rattled the tall iron gates. Inside, tension pulsed like electricity through the hallways. The air wasn't just heavy with weather, it was the weight of danger closing in. Damon stood at the window in his study, staring out at the long driveway. 2 black SUVs now flanked the house. Armed guards patrolled the grounds. Ivy and Aubrey were in the safe room. Damon had insisted after the latest threat. The investigator's report still burned in his hand. Travis Owen wanted in 2 states, suspected of fraud, stalking, and arson, and now linked directly to threats against Ivy. Worse, he wasn't working alone. An anonymous staff member at Wolf Industries had been feeding him updates, and now he was in the country. Too close. Downstairs in the panic room, Ivy sat with Aubrey on her lap. The walls were steel reinforced, the door electronically locked, and cameras showed every inch of the estate. Still, Ivy couldn't stop shaking. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered, brushing Aubrey's hair back. I should have told the truth sooner. I didn't mean to drag you into all this. Aubrey looked up with the wide-eyed wisdom children sometimes carry. You're my mom, she said simply. You protect me. Now let Mr. Damon protect you. Those words made Ivy's throat tighten. Damon had given them more than safety. He had given them hope, a future, a family, and now he was risking it all for them. That night, Damon made his move. He didn't wait for Travis to strike. He set a trap. From a secured phone, he sent out false information leaking that Ivy and Aubrey would be transferred to a second estate under minimal security. Cameras were reduced. The route was publicly traceable. Then he waited. 4 hours later, a black car was spotted near the property edge, its license plate covered, headlights off. Sir, he's here. The guard confirmed over comms. Damon stepped out onto the driveway alone, coat whipping in the wind, expression like carved stone. When the car stopped and the door opened, Damon recognized the face instantly. Travis. Older, leaner, crueler than Owen had ever been. His eyes burned with something venomous. Nice place, Wolf, he sneered. Bet you don't even lock your doors. Damon's voice was calm, deadly. I knew you'd come. I just want what I'm owed. You're owed nothing. Travis stepped forward, careless. Ivy ruined my brother. She burned down his life. She protected her child from a monster. You call that child protection? You think a prison sentence was enough? She owes me for what she did. He was my blood. She's my family now, Damon said coldly. If you ever come near them again, you'll regret it. Is that a threat, rich boy? No. Damon nodded. Toward the woods. Red dots appeared on Travis's chest. Security snipers. Hidden cameras. Recording everything. It's a promise. Travis hesitated, smirk fading, and then he lunged, but within seconds, security tackled him to the ground. He was cuffed, searched, and dragged to the SUV. Damon watched as the man who had haunted Ivy for years was finally taken away. No violence, no chaos. Just justice. The next morning, Ivy stood on the back patio in the soft light of dawn. She hadn't spoken much since Damon returned from the confrontation. Part of her still couldn't believe it was over. Aubrey played with her stuffed bunny nearby, drawing with sidewalk chalk. When Damon stepped outside, Ivy turned. You didn't have to do all that, she whispered. I did. Why? He took a long breath. Because I loved you, Ivy. I still do, even after everything. Her eyes shimmered. I thought you'd never forgive me. I haven't forgotten, but forgiveness, that's a choice I make every day now. She looked down. I don't know how to be a wife to someone like you. I still feel broken. He stepped closer. You're not broken. You're someone who survived. That's strength, Ivy, not weakness. She leaned into him, her head on his chest, his arms wrapped around her like a wall. Safe, warm, real. 2 weeks passed. The headlines changed tone. Travis Owen arrested for stalking Wolf CEO's wife. Truth behind Ivy Wolf's past. Survival, motherhood, and redemption public. Opinion shifted. Ivy was no longer the scandal. She was the survivor, the fighter, the woman who had endured and risen. And Damon stood by her in every photo, every press conference, every court hearing. When the day came for Ivy's criminal record to be formally expired, Damon was there, holding her hand as she signed the papers that wiped the slate clean. You're free now, he whispered. She turned to him. No, she said softly, we're free. That evening, back at the estate, Ivy found something waiting for her in the garden. Aubrey led her there with excitement, hands over her mother's eyes. Okay, now open. Ivy blinked. A small wooden swing, set hand-painted, flowers planted underneath, a tiny white bench with their initials carved into it, D+I+A. Tears filled her eyes. Damon stepped out of the shadows, smiling. I thought we could use a memory that didn't hurt. Ivy nodded, wiping her face. It's perfect. Aubrey ran ahead and jumped into the swing. Ivy sat beside Damon on the bench, watching their daughter fly. Do you think she'll remember all this? Ivy asked. Maybe, Damon said. But I hope what she remembers most is love. Ivy turned to him, voice trembling. You're more of a father to her than anyone ever was. She needs you. He looked at her. And you. I need you too, she said. But this time, I want to stay. No secrets. No running. Just us. He leaned in and kissed her forehead. Then let's build something that lasts. 6 months later, the Wolf Foundation for Women and Children opened its doors, founded by Ivy and Damon. The charity offered legal support, shelter, education, and mental health services for women like Ivy, those who had survived and were ready to rise again. Ivy stood in front of the crowd during the launch, microphone trembling in her hands. My name is Ivy Wolf. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. But I'm here today not because of what I lost, but because of what I found. Hope, a second chance, and the courage to speak the truth. Applause roared. Damon watched from the side, pride shining in his eyes, and in the front row, Aubrey clapped. The loudest epilogue on a quiet Sunday morning. Ivy and Damon sat on the garden bench, while Aubrey picked flowers nearby. Ivy leaned her head against his shoulder. You know, she whispered, the day we met again, I never thought I deserved this life. Damon looked at her gently, and now she smiled. Now I know. I fought for it, and it was worth it. He kissed her hand. Aubrey ran toward them, arms full of daisies. Look, these are for you. Geist. Damon lifted her up and twirled her around. Laughter filled the air. The past was no longer a prison. It had become a story they survived. Together. The end.